I've handled corporate fraud, high-stakes hostile takeovers, and every kind of silver-tongued liar you can imagine. The ones who think their designer suit makes them bulletproof. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepares you for driving 800 miles back to the only place you swore you'd never return, only to have 2 security guards block the road, point at a gate they illegally installed on your family's land, and sneer, "You're banned from entering." That was the moment my corporate composure shattered, and the lawyer inside me stopped calculating and started hunting. I wasn't supposed to be awake that early. My rhythm is 30 stories above the Chicago Loop, not the pre-dawn quiet of a Midwest highway. But I'd been dreaming about my father, Elias Vance. And he never visited quietly, not in real life, not in my head. In the dream, he stood there with that stubborn jaw and those heavy arms, a silence that felt heavier than any shouted argument we ever had. I sat up, the darkness pressing in, and then my phone buzzed. Unknown number, 3 missed calls. It buzzed again. I picked up, expecting some client on Eastern Time, ready to bleed me dry. "Hello." A woman answered, her voice trembling with that practiced, hospital calm. "Is this Mr. Vance, Julian Vance, son of Elias Vance?" My back straightened instantly. I hadn't used the name Elias in 15 years. "Yes." "Who is this?" "This is Portwell General Hospital. Your father was brought in early this morning. A major cardiac event. He's unresponsive." I didn't respond at first. The last time my father and I spoke, 3 years ago, he told me I was a traitor to the land, that I'd abandoned the bloodline, and then he hung up. But hearing a stranger say he might die, that hit like a physical punch to the ribs. "Do you have any other next of kin we should contact?" the nurse asked, her voice softening. "No," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Just me. Text me the address. I'm coming." I moved before my mind could catch up with my body, ripped off the silk pajamas, threw on the stiffest pair of jeans I owned, grabbed my old boots and the go bag I hadn't touched since I left for law school. Lawyer to son, the transformation was instant. By the time the sky turned gray, I was on the interstate heading west, the Tesla gliding silently through the morning gloom. No music, no podcasts, just the low hum of tires and the heavy silence you can't outrun. I thought about Elias, the kind of man who measured life in acres, not hours. 5,000 acres, 1 dog named Copper, 1 stubborn pride, and a vendetta against anyone wearing a clipboard. And me? I spent my entire youth trying to put distance between us. Somewhere outside of Rockford, I reached for my encrypted phone and typed a message to the one person who might understand the cold dread settling in my gut. "Reyes. Heading back to Stone Creek Ranch. Something feels off. Heard Sterling Mesa HOA has been expanding aggressively. Check if that name has crossed your desk. Sam." A minute later, the reply. "The FBI doesn't usually chase HOA drama, Julian, but I'll look. Let me know if anything smells like fraud." I put the phone down, 2 hands on the wheel, staring at the road stretching toward a past I thought I'd buried forever. I thought I was racing against death. I didn't know I was driving straight into a hostile takeover. The hospital sat at the edge of the sleepy, faded town of Portwell. Low, square, cracked asphalt, automatic doors wheezing like they were exhaling their last bit of strength. Inside, the smell of disinfectant and old anxiety hit me. "Robert Carter," I told the nurse. "Room 215, ICU." I stood in the doorway and saw him. The man who once lifted tractor engines like they were grocery bags, now lying small and still under the thin sheets. Oxygen line, wires, machines beeping slow and steady. Too steady. I felt that old choke of grief and anger, mixed with a devastating sense of being too late. A doctor walked in, late 40s, tired eyes. "You must be Julian." "He's stable. For now, but unresponsive. Massive strain." I swallowed hard. "He doesn't drink. He hasn't in 30 years." The doctor paused. "Well, he did that night. He was found outside a liquor store, disoriented, collapsed shortly after." "What?" It made 0 sense. "Was anything found on him? Wallet, phone, keys?" "Only an old insurance card," the doctor said. "No ID, no personal effects. He was brought in by a passerby." My chest went cold. "I need to go to the ranch," I said quietly. "Find his paperwork, medication, anything. Something here is wrong." I walked out of the hospital, the afternoon sun heavy and orange. The road to Stone Creek Ranch was burned into my memory, a long, winding dirt path, sagging fences, open fields. But as I rounded the last familiar bend, my heart stopped dead. The old wooden gate, the one my father refused to fix for 30 years, was gone. In its place stood a 12-foot steel barricade, new enough to still smell like machine oil. Thick metal beams, bright reflective paint, completely alien here. A large sign read, Sterling Mesa Community Board, private entry. Authorized personnel only. 2 guards stood beside a white Ford Explorer with the Sterling Mesa logo slapped across the door. The taller one, smug, with a tight green uniform, stepped forward as I stopped. "Can I help you, sir?" His tone said no. "I'm going to the Vance farm," I said, keeping my voice level. "This is my father's property." He and the shorter guard exchanged smirks. "Yeah, about that," the tall one said. "This land is under Sterling Mesa jurisdiction now. You're not on the approved list. You're banned from entering." I stared at the gate, then back at him. "I didn't ask for permission. I stated where I'm going," I said. The smug guard, Bryce, stepped closer. "Buddy, rules are rules. You need authorization from Sterling Mesa management." "Buddy," I repeated, a dangerous word. "I'd like to see the deed transfer, the annexation paperwork, any legal documentation showing this property is under HOA jurisdiction since you're enforcing it." Bryce blinked, clearly not expecting a legal request. We don't carry that stuff around." "Then what exactly are you guarding?" That irritated him. "Listen, counselor," he said, slow and pointed. "We know who you are, and we know what you're trying to do." My jaw tightened. They were briefed. They were expecting Julian Vance. I reached forward and tapped the center console. The car gave a soft chime. "Cameras activated." Bryce glanced at the red recording light and straightened a fraction. "Just for the record," I said calmly, "I am the son of the property owner, who is currently in the ICU. I am attempting to access his residence to retrieve critical personal and medical belongings. You are criminally obstructing me." He shot back. "You can explain that to the sheriff, but until we get confirmation from management, you're not getting through. Office is closed, how convenient." He thought he'd won. I smiled, a cold, controlled movement. "Enjoy this gate," I said, lowering my voice. "I'll be back with something you can't block." I shifted into reverse and pulled away slowly, never taking my eyes off them. They watched me leave, laughing, thinking I was retreating. I was documenting. I was calculating. I was building the case that would bury them. I didn't drive back to the ranch. I drove straight to the Portwell County Courthouse. Online records were down, of course. Everything in this county ran on goodwill and gossip, not servers. I walked inside the county recorder's office. Behind the glass sat Martha Hayes, the same clerk who'd been here since I was a kid. Her silver hair and beaded glasses hadn't changed. "Julian Vance, is that really you?" she exclaimed. "Morning, Martha. I need the full record for the Vance property. Deeds, transfers, anything filed in the last 6 months." She raised an eyebrow. "That's a lot. Something going on. HOA put up a steel gate and blocked me from entering my father's land." Her jaw dropped. "An HOA out there? That's farmland. They can't do that." She started typing slowly. "Here's the last recorded deed transfer, 1984. Your father and mother's names. No changes." Relief washed over me, but then she frowned. "Hold on. That's strange. A supplemental filing. Not under deeds. Under administrative notices. Filed 5 days ago." She clicked. The screen opened a grainy, crooked scan. Across the top, Notice of Property Incorporation into Sterling Mesa Community Association. Effective immediately, authority granted per annexation provisions. It was worse than not right. I stepped closer. The language was overly formal, but what punched me in the gut was the signature. County Surveyor Daniel R. Collins. "Martha," I whispered. "Daniel Collins died in 2019. She looked again. Lord have mercy, he sure did. A dead man had signed the annexation. Someone thought nobody would check. But they hadn't. Counted on a son coming home. A son who was a corporate litigator. I noticed another detail. The pen stroke on the D was stiff, traced, not the looping capital D Collins was famous for. And the time stamp, 5:46 p.m. "When do you close, Martha?" "For sharp, you know that." And after hours, deceased official signed, illegal filing. This was not turf war. This was criminal fraud. "Print me every page," I said, my jaw locked. "Stamped and certified." While she worked, she whispered the name of the clerk who processed the file, J. Mullery. Clerk of record. Tight, with developers. Of course. They really thought this paper-thin attempt would hold up. I took the stack, heavy in my hands, feeling the heat of pure, cold purpose. I was done being careful. I drove back to the ranch, this time parking further out and walking the last stretch. I found the ranch foreman, Gus, waiting by the barn, his face grim. "Julian," he muttered. "I figured you'd end up here." "Gus, what happened?" He scratched his beard. "Couple nights ago, the night Elias was taken to the hospital, I saw a box truck, white, unmarked, roll up the drive around midnight. Sterling Mesa." My stomach dropped. "They went inside your daddy's house," he said, voice raw. "Dragged out the fireproof safe like it was trash day." I closed my eyes for a beat. Gus added, "They didn't even try to hide it, Julian. Meant for you to see it, I think." I walked to the farmhouse. The door was unlocked. The inside was ransacked, but surgically so. Drawers ripped out, floorboards pried up, the fireproof safe gone. They weren't looking for money. They were hunting documents. Near the doorway, I found a final insult. A printed notice slipped under kicked-over mail. Sterling Mesa Community Association Security Compliance Inspection completed. They put an HOA inspection label on a home invasion. I slipped the evidence into my pocket. "They think they robbed an old man," I murmured to Gus. What they really did was declare war on a lawyer. I spent 45 minutes in the truck, building the final strategy. I had the certified fraudulent deeds, I had Gus's testimony of theft, and I had the dashcam footage of Bryce obstructing me from accessing medical files. I recorded a final, calm voice memo. "I am returning to Carter Farm to secure property under necessity. Should they obstruct, I will follow lawful remedies to remove illegal barriers preventing me from reaching my father's home." This wasn't rage. This was a knife made of law. I pulled up to the gate. Bryce and the other guard were waiting, grinning. "Look who's back, counselor." Still banned. I kept both hands on the wheel, speaking clearly for the dashcam. "Under whose authority?" "Greenhaven." Bryce tapped his patch. "That patch isn't law, and that annexation document filed last week is forged. I have the certified proof in this vehicle." His grin faltered. "Turn around. Final warning." "Good," I said, opening my door. "Thank you." They exchanged confused glances. "Good." I stepped out, holding up the slip of paper, my written notice of lawful entry, for the camera. "If you deny me access again, you are committing criminal obstruction on private land. If you damage my vehicle or impede my movement, that is assault." Bryce rolled his eyes. "You're not walking through here." "No," I said, stepping back into the Tesla. "I'm driving." Bryce slapped the hood. That was the moment I needed. A clear recorded act of aggression. Enough for necessity. Enough for self-help removal of an unlawful barrier. Enough for the lawyer who knew exactly what box to check. I shifted into drive. The car surged forward, not speeding, just a firm, deliberate force. The steel gate creaked, the hinges shrieked, and then the entire barrier exploded backward off its mounting bolts like it had been waiting to surrender. The sound echoed across the fields. The guards scrambled, radios dropped, cursing. The Tesla rolled through the opening, clean, steady, unstoppable. I was through. I was on the land. I was home. But before I could drive more than 50 yards, the sound of gravel tires, fast, heavy, made me check the mirror. A county sheriff cruiser tore around the bend, lights flashing. Then a second one. I muttered, right on schedule. 2 deputies stepped out fast, hands hovering near holsters. The thick-necked lead deputy barked, "Julian Vance? You're under arrest." "Hands where I can see them." Gus shouted from the barn, but I yelled back, "Stay back, Gus. Don't get involved." I lifted my hands, palms out, compliant calm. "What are the charges?" I asked. The deputy sneered. "Trespassing, forced entry, destruction of private property, assault with a deadly weapon, your vehicle." There it was. The exact list Veronica Thorne wanted. I didn't argue. I didn't shout. "I do not consent to any search or interrogation," I stated, my courtroom voice razor sharp. "I will comply fully." He cuffed me roughly, shoving me into the back of the cruiser. "You think you can plow through a lawful HOA security gate and walk away?" he scoffed. I leaned my head back, staring at the dusty plexiglass divider. They thought they had me. They forgot. Lawyers don't panic. We build cases. The county jail smelled like mildew and cheap ego. They took my belt, my phone, everything except my training. "Sit tight, Counselor, the deputy mocked. 5 minutes later, the door opened. But it wasn't the deputy. It was Veronica Thorne herself. Perfect suit, perfect hair, stepping into the holding room with the grace of someone entering a spa. Mr. Vance, she purred, folding her hands in front of her. My condolences on your situation. I didn't stand. I just stared at her like a witness I was about to dismantle. She held up a plastic tablet case containing the fraudulent papers. Fairview County has recognized Sterling Mesa's acquisition. Your father signed the transfer. It's done. Forgery, I said, simple and flat. She laughed, practiced and cold. You drove through a newly installed security gate, Julian, nearly killed my guards, trespassed, and you're sitting here trying to lecture me on forgery? She crouched down, leaning in, her perfume cloying. You're finished. Sign this waiver, admit fault, and agree to stay off Sterling Mesa property. I'll recommend leniency. Leniency, I repeated. You broke into my father's house, Veronica. You stole his safe. You staged this arrest to buy time to hide the evidence. Her sharp, involuntary flinch was all the confirmation I needed. You have no proof, she hissed. I smiled, the first genuine, cold smile since coming home. Yet, I stood up slowly, controlled, towering over her. You should have done your homework, I said. I interned at the DOJ's Fraud Prevention Division. I can smell a forged notary from 50 feet away. And meaning, Veronica, if you're not out of this building in 10 seconds, you're going to witness the biggest mistake you've ever made. She opened her mouth to retort, but the front door of the sheriff's office slammed open. Footsteps, heavy, synchronized, authoritative. Veronica froze. A figure appeared in the doorway. Dark suit, badge hanging from a lanyard, eyes sharp enough to cut stone. Agent Leo Reyes. 2 FBI agents flanked him. Leo scanned the room, saw the open cell, saw Veronica, and then his eyes landed on me. Julian. Firm, grounding. He looked at the deputy. Unlock the cell. Now. The deputy stammered. But the sheriff said. Leo stepped forward, his voice cold enough to frost the bars. I said unlock the cell. Keys rattled. I stepped out. Leo turned to Veronica. Mrs. Thorne, he said, voice dripping with professional scorn. My name is Special Agent Leonard Reyes with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. We have been monitoring Sterling Mesa Community Association for over a year, and your presence here tonight attempting to coerce a detainee into signing documents is extremely valuable evidence. Karen's entire body went rigid. I don't know what you're implying. I'm implying, Leo said softly, that your little empire is about to come apart. He then turned to me. Let's go, Julian. As I walked past Veronica, Leo leaned toward me. By the way, you were right. They did break into your father's house. We have the surveillance timestamps. My jaw clenched. And we're just getting started. The ride from the jail to the Sterling Mesa headquarters felt like driving toward a reckoning. When we got there, 3 unmarked FBI SUVs were already positioned. Warrants confirmed, the lead agent said. Execute. Boom. The battering ram hit the front door. Agents flooded inside, shouting, FBI, federal warrant. Do not touch the computers. I followed Leo into the chaos. Everything, the fake fountain, the glossy brochures, was a flimsy disguise. We found my father's steel safe in a small side room, pried open with a crowbar, empty. All the land maps, the deed backups, gone. Then, Agent Reyes, something here. We followed the voice into Veronica Thorne's large corner office. And there, on her pristine mahogany desk, under a pool of lamplight, sat a small, tarnished silver locket. My mother's locket. I recognized the faint scratch inside the band, the engraving Dad had asked for in 1984. I picked it up, feeling my chest cave in. She kept it, I murmured. Not as evidence. She kept it for herself. Leo's jaw flexed. That's not just theft, he said. That's cruelty. I slipped the locket into my pocket. My voice came out low, controlled. She's not walking away from this. We stepped back into the hall just as Veronica was cornered in the conference room, shrieking. You have no right. This is private property. Leo stepped in. You think any of that matters? She hissed, a poisonous smirk returning. You think anyone cares about some old man on a dying farm? You think you can stop what's coming? Leo paused, letting the silence crush her. Mrs. Thorne, he said, his voice dropping to a dangerous calm. You will not speak about that man again. Cuffs snapped shut around her wrists. As agents dragged her toward the hallway, she screamed about lawsuits, conspiracies, and owning the town. Leo spoke loudly, clearly, so every employee could hear. "No, Mrs. Thorne. Your career is over. Justice stops the immediate bleeding, but healing takes longer." When the gavel finally fell and Veronica Thorne was sentenced to 17 years for fraud, theft, and conspiracy, there wasn't a cheer in the courtroom. Just the heavy silence of finality. Dad stood next to me, stiff in his patched blazer, breathing with effort. We walked out into the afternoon sun. The road home looked the same. Dust, fence lines, open sky. But the steel gate was gone, cut down that very morning. Gus was waiting by the barn. "Welcome home, boss," he said to my father. Then, a familiar bark. Copper, old, limping, but alive, trotted out from behind the feed shed, tail thumping. Dad crouched down, burying his face in the dog's neck. "He thought he lost you, old boy." I walked the fields that evening. I used to think land was just dirt and obligation. But standing there, watching the cottonwoods sway, I realized what my father knew. Land remembers. It remembers every fight, every sacrifice. A month later, I started construction on my own place on the west edge of the ranch. Dad came by every morning, coffee in hand, offering unsolicited advice. "You're a lawyer," he'd say, kicking a stud. "But even a lawyer ought to know what warps if you don't stack it right." I rolled my eyes, but I listened. A few weeks after that, I walked back down to where the steel gate used to be. The scar in the earth was still fresh. I knelt down, pressed my fingers into the soil, and planted a whole line of sunflower seeds, Mom's favorite. By spring, they stood tall, bright, gold, defiant. A living wall no corrupt HOA could ever breach. People think stories like this end in courtrooms, but for me, it ended right there in that field, standing barefoot in the soil my family bled for, next to the man who taught me what being a Vance truly means. For the first time in a long time, I was home. But here's the kicker. Leo Reyes told me Sterling Mesa was just a pawn in a larger, multi-county land seizure corridor. We won the battle, but the war is still out there, lurking in the fine print of the next corporate deed. So, here's my question for you. In a small community, when the local sheriff and the county clerk are clearly compromised by someone like Veronica, is it ever okay to use self-help measures like running your car through an illegal gate to seize the moral high ground and force a legal challenge? Or does obeying the law, even when you know it's corrupt, always come first? Let me know what you think in the comments below, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe for more deep dives into the dark side of community politics.